Hey, Krista, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Good to be on with you. Thanks for taking the time today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's dive right in. Tell me about just a little bit about what you do.
I do website design and social media management, and I started my company about 3 years ago. And the sole objective of my company is to serve Catholic businesses and Catholic entities, and that has been honestly amazing. I had some people tell me early on that that was maybe a little bit too narrow of a niche to focus on, which I also had someone the other day tell me, well, isn't that the path we're supposed to take, is the narrow one? So it's uh
Yeah,
it's been awesome. It's been a blessing.
good. How did you get into it in the first place?
Well, so I actually have a degree in graphic design and a minor in information systems, but I've been out of college for quite a few years. I didn't use those skills necessarily in my corporate job. I worked for 17 years for the largest class one railroad in the United States. And so I used a lot more of my marketing and analytical skill set at that time. I did website design a little bit in college, but really got back into it in 2019 when my parish was looking to redo our website. I just volunteered and joined the committee and designed the website at that time. And so after that, I had a lot of people ask me if I would be interested in doing websites. And at the time I told them no, that I was still working and, wasn't really looking to do that at the time. But then I went to a silent retreat in 2021 and just really felt that I was being called to do this. And so I quit my corporate job at the end of 21 and started my company in January of 2022. And I've just gone all in on more of the creative side of my education and my brain. And
Wow.
it's been great ever since.
Yeah, very cool. So tell me about like some of the work that you do, like specifically, what kind of projects did you start with? What kind of projects are you working on right now?
So initially, I started really focused on helping Catholic churches because a lot of their websites are very low budget, not frequently updated. It just, to me, it was a great opportunity to help churches. And so I really started going all in on that. And that did not pan out initially. There are a couple big companies out there that offer Catholic church websites for free as long as you put a bunch of advertising on the website. I started with a couple Catholic church websites, but really what got me started was working with Sarah clubs that really promote vocations to the Catholic priesthood. And I've done Sierra Club websites for cities coast to coast, and that kind of got me started. And then I've come back to Catholic churches now that I've kind of established myself more. All of my business is essentially word of mouth referrals. And so now I've created more of a position with Catholic churches where they see me as an expert and see me as somebody that they can go look at my work. And so kind of circle back to that. But I do a combination of what I call project work, which would be websites, and monthly retainer work would be more of the social media work that I do.
Yeah. How how difficult has it been, if at all, like to get that word of mouth started? Like it sounds like that's the primary way of like people get to know you. Like how does that work just to bring awareness to the work that you do?
Honestly, I give it all to God because I think a lot of people, like I said, well, how are you going to be successful? People still question, like, really? She's completely sold out and that's all she does. But, I think it's also the work that I do. And when the work that you do speaks for itself, people are willing and excited to share about that. So I did a lot of prospecting really for the first probably 3 months of my business. And then I haven't really done any prospecting since. So it's just been a matter of, honestly, it's kind of like I finish a project and all of a sudden I've got someone new reaching out saying, hey, I heard about you from so and so. Do you have time to do this?
Yeah.
Like I said, I honestly give it all to God because it's just been, I don't even know if I could say it's been too easy. I feel like I just jinxed it by admitting that. But it's like I guess when you let God lead, then I suppose you should trust that.
Yeah. 100%. What was like the biggest challenge of going from working a job to starting your own business? Like the behind the scenes, like what was the most challenging, maybe even the uh least fun part of that?
Oh, that's a good question. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. When I was in college, like I said, I did some website design on the side and kind of did my own thing then. I actually started another business in 2016 where I own rental real estate. And so I was able to start a business, and I still do that now, but I started that while I was working in corporate America. I don't know. I feel like it's been really smooth, which again, I feel like I just jinxed it by admitting that. But so I quit my job at the end of 2021, but about 2 years leading up to that, I had really started to lay the groundwork. I followed entrepreneurs online. There's different organizations that are set up just to help entrepreneurs be successful. So I learned a lot about, selecting my niche and getting contracts and setting up the LLC. And I had an amazing attorney. He's recently retired, but he helped me set up the LLC and that sort of thing. So I would say initially the hardest part was finding clients, but obviously that didn't last very long. But I also feel like there's people that are suited to be entrepreneurs that are kind of willing to take that risk and willing to just roll with it. And then there's
Hmm.
people that are like, I feel comfortable doing what I'm doing. I like having a paycheck. And so I think I'm just kind of wired that way to be an entrepreneur. So I don't know. I didn't
Yeah.
really answer your question.
No, that makes perfect sense to me. So like it's called Remnant Marketing, right?
Mhm.
How'd you pick the name and like the branding?
Yeah. So, like I said, my intention was to set out to be a service provider for Catholic entities, and so as I prayed about that, I contemplated that. I came up with the word remnant because we hear it throughout Scripture that God will preserve a faithful remnant, and I was like, if you get it, you get it, and if you don't, you're like, okay, it's a marketing company. And so that's how I came up with it. I'd call it divine inspiration. And then the other thing that I just kept seeing in scripture as I was thinking about this, planning the business, was that faithful remnant. Eventually, we're going to end up on the holy mountain. And there's a song I sing at church, and my kids sometimes sing with me. And there's a beautiful song that we love to sing that's called On That Holy Mountain. And it's straight from scripture, but it just talks about how the lion will lay down with the calf and everything will be peaceful. And so I just felt like that mountain imagery really spoke to me as well. And so that's where the stylized triangles come from that are in my logo, are to symbolize Mount Zion and that holy mountain that we'll eventually come to. And so that's how that came together. Like I said, remnant marketing, I know people sometimes are like, oh, what's that mean? But I'm okay with that. I want it to be something that speaks to clients that want to work with me. And yeah, so
Very cool. So if I am a Catholic parish, Sarah Club organization, whatever it might be, like someone who might be interested in your services. Number one, what's like your biggest piece of advice to those organizations when it comes to social media and websites? So like where you focus on, and then where would you take me as like, okay, I'm like kind of starting from ground zero. What would be the process?
yeah. So the first thing that I always tell everybody is that everybody's online today. So the first piece of advice is you've got to be there. You've got to be there, get a good website, get active on social media. And then the second piece is you have to have a brand that is identifiable. Even if you're a church, you need to consistently use your colors, your logo, your name, your church name, whatever it is, so that when people are seeing your content, they identify it with your organization. And that applies to anybody, not just Catholic entities. But I feel like my clients in particular don't always think about how important branding is and an online presence. And so those are the number one and number two things that I always tell them. And so I am also really big about, I'm going to give you this kind of advice, whether you choose to hire me or not, because I want you to be successful. I want the gospel to be proclaimed, and I want you to grow your parishioners or your membership or whatever your group is. And so those are the number one and number two things that I say. Then, as far as getting started working with me, I've got a number of different planning documents that I walk through with clients. So, if you want to do a website, what is most important to you? What do you want on that website? What are inspiration websites that you like the way that they look? Are there any things that we need to keep in mind as far as coloring and branding? Because in a lot of cases, you're coming from a parish that people have been parishioners for years and years and years. And so you can't go from a St. Patrick's parish with green as your primary color to purple everything. Like, you have to keep in mind the history and what is existing. And then we work through that to come up with a concept. Sometimes they already have an established brand. Sometimes we do the branding and then we go forward from there. So we do a lot of planning to get started and make sure they understand what we need to do to move forward. And then a lot of times that also informs what the quote is going to be. I try to keep my prices really low and affordable because of the client base that I'm working with. But it also helps to understand how big of a website they want and then, talk through what their options are.
Totally. Yeah. And are you based out of Omaha, Nebraska?
Yeah, I live outside of Omaha in Gretna.
Gotcha. Okay. Was the retreat you were on, was it Cloisters on the
It
Platte?
was, yeah. Yep.
I've been there 3 times now.
It's amazing.
It's so incredible. I recommend it to anyone who's listening, all my friends and family. Like my family's all been on it too. It's such an incredible place.
It absolutely is. That I've been there 4 times now, and like I said, that was where I was inspired in front of the Blessed Sacrament that this is what the Lord wanted me to do.
Definitely. So I always find it interesting with Catholic entrepreneurs. So, you know, you have your faith life, but then if you're having a specifically Catholic product or service, there's that kind of intermingling into your faith life as well. So how has that changed your faith life at all, or in your prayer life? Like, how do you go about structuring your day?
Well, I came from a very secular business, and it was funny how when I first got started, I'm meeting with a priest or somebody, and they want to start the meeting in prayer. And like, of course, but I came from an atmosphere where you just never said anything about faith. And so it was a really interesting transition where initially it felt really uncomfortable. And I was like, but wait, this is what I'm doing now. And so there absolutely was a transition of where I needed to step fully into what I'm doing. And that was part of why I wanted to start this because I did. I felt like I checked my faith at the door and then I lived my secular life and then I went home. And so it's like, when this is what I do all day and I'm in scripture all day as I'm putting things together for clients, it's been an amazing blessing. I admittedly have not been the best with my own routine. I've started this year, I've completed about I think it was 3 years or 4 years of the Bible in a year and listened to it every day, but it wasn't always at the same time of day or whatnot. And so this year I've started the rosary in a year. And so I've made it a point to start my day with that. I sit and I listen to it. I've also been listening to another, it's kind of like a podcast training from the Catholic Psych Institute on Catholic mindfulness. And so I basically start my day with those 2 podcasts every single day. And that helps kind of put me in the right mindset, especially since then my kids get out of bed and then there's the rat race. But that's I've been better this year to actually get in a routine.
Definitely. What have you found that you would think would be helpful advice to other Catholic entrepreneurs, specifically starting like service-based businesses like yours?
Um, Honestly, this Catholic mindfulness training that I've been doing has been pretty transformative. It's really about being in the present moment and not letting yourself worry about the future or mull on the past, what's happened. And I think that's really important to anything you do in life, and especially starting a business. If you're going to focus on today, I'm working on my LLC paperwork, like just focus on it. Let everything else go aside, give it to God. And I think that's probably the biggest thing I would tell people. I have a ton of fun talking to entrepreneurs now. There's a lot of people that are like, okay, what do I need to do? Or how did you do this? And there's resources that I can provide for that. But I feel like now it's really this mindfulness that says, just live in the moment. And I think that bringing the world of psychology together with their Catholic faith has also been just amazing about this program, that there's so much interrelatedness in both of those.
Yeah. Is there a book tied in that program? I feel like I've seen like a book on Catholic mindfulness.
There may be. The Catholic Psych Institute has a ton of different resources. Like he's even got a Catholic mindfulness book for kids. That's pretty cool. I'm doing the online program, but I'm not sure if there's a book, probably.
Okay. Yeah. No, it sounds like an interesting topic because, especially in this day and age of just like distractions,
Hmm.
like to your point, like if you're going to do paperwork for that day, like just be able to set, like that is just so difficult to do, to be able to set all those distractions aside, especially as a business owner. So it's interesting that that's like a perspective you're bringing to your work that I think would be really helpful. Um,
Yes.
Anything else that you, what's been like the most interesting story that's come from working with a client?
Oh, interesting story. I mean, honestly, I just love the different people that I get to work with. Like I said, the Sarah clubs I've basically done from coast to coast. And so a lot of those folks I've never met in person. And there's a Sarah International Conference in Kansas City this summer. So I'm pretty excited to actually get to meet some of my clients face to face. But that's been, I think, probably the people is the coolest part of it. Um, the Sierra Club of Philadelphia that I designed their website almost 2.5 years ago now. Their club president is from Cuba originally, and he has an organization called Hope for Cuba that he has a website for, and he's talked to me about helping him with that as well. And so it'd be pretty cool to get an international website that I get to help with. There's a number of websites I help with that support causes in Uganda and Nigeria. They're local in the United States, but they support missions over there. And so I think it's just the people that I get to work with and the different missions that I get to help support.
Hmm. And then you do some speaking as well. Is that right?
Yeah, so I've developed a few Bible studies. So as part of that, I will go speak at organizations. Like in one case, I took my it was like 6 30-minute sessions, and I condensed it down into about an hour and a half talk. And then sometimes people ask me to just present the Bible study. I'm actually going to do that for my parish starting in Lent, but it's also available on YouTube, and people can order the workbook on Amazon and do that themselves if they want to. But yeah, that's most of what I do for speaking, but I've been asked to give my testimony a couple times as well.
Cool. Where can people like find you and keep up with some of the things you're doing?
Yeah, so my website is remnantmarketing.com. And in retrospect, I did not make this the easiest website. So it's Remnant, REMNANT, and then it's the abbreviation of marketing, MKTG.com. So Remnant Marketing
Perfect.
in total wasn't available. And then I'm on social media also at Remnant Marketing with the abbreviation. But yeah, social media, website. Would love to have people check it out.
Definitely. Okay. I'm going to be sure to link that below in this episode too. So, Krista, any final parting words or words of wisdom for entrepreneurs?
You know, I would just say go for it. I think if it's something you're passionate about, the old saying goes, if you love what you're doing, you never work a day in your life. But it's like if it's something you're passionate about, if it's something you're feeling called to, give it to God, trust that He's going to help you get there, and just do it. I know a lot of people are hesitant. They feel the imposter syndrome. They're like, I don't know if I can take this risk and give up, the salary that I might be getting, but just go for it. Give it to God and trust that He's got a plan for you, and His plan is always better than what we could ever imagine.
100%. And you're a living testament to that. I feel like you said, you're just jumping into it and being able to trust and having the clients come your way. So you do great work, Krista. It's been great to get to know you. Keep up the amazing work. I'm excited to just keep up with what you're doing. So again, I'll link stuff about Krista here in the episode. But yeah, Krista, thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
God bless. We'll see you.
Have a great day.